so excited. This is Rick Jansen, employing broker at Denver Lifestyle Real Estate here in Denver, Colorado, serving Denver, the Summit County area, all the way up to Boulder, down to Colorado Springs, up into Summit County, Grand County, and Eagle County. But you found us through Rocky Mountain Down Payment Assistance, and I have online right now one of the best lenders in Denver. I've been working with him for years. He treats my clients right. He's honest. He follows through, and he knows more about down payment assistance than anybody. And what we wanted to do was teach you a little bit about what comes next. You just clicked on a link. You said, hey, I want some more information about down payment assistance. Well, I have the man online right now, and I want to introduce you to Evan Jansen with Summit Home Mortgage. How you doing, Evan?
Good. How are you doing, Rick?
Good, good. So someone just clicked on a link asking for some more information about down payment assistance. What happens now?
Well, there are several different down payment assistance programs throughout the Denver metro and Colorado area. The best thing for me to do would be to speak with the person who clicked on the link and wants to know more about down payment assistance and figure out which one of those down payment assistance programs is going to work best for that individual. Everyone's scenario is different.
Yeah, how do you determine that? Sorry, how do you determine that? What works best? They're clicking online, there are 2,300 options, but they're not the pros. This might be their first time buying a home. Where do they go from here?
The best thing to do is to have a conversation with me. To start off, I'll figure out what their situation is, what their job history is, their income, their credit history, what type of purchase price they're looking at, if they have any money for down payment assets, and then I can look through and also see if they're going to be having someone co-sign with them, if they've owned a home before, if they own a home now. All of those things come into play when figuring out which down payment assistance program to choose.
Excellent. So let's go through maybe your top three. Would that be fair? Do we have time to do that?
Absolutely.
All right. So break it down for us.
The three main down payment assistance programs in the Denver metro area are CHFA, which is Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, the NHF program, and then also the Denver MMA Plus program. So I'll go through all three, and I'll start with CHFA. CHFA has many different programs. Most of them are based off of an FHA loan. So the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA loans require 3.5% down payment. CHFA offers a first mortgage with a grant for 3% of the loan amount, of the first mortgage loan amount, to be used for down payment. So if it's a $100,000 purchase price, you have a $97,000 or $96,500 loan, then you get 3% of the $96,500 to use for your down payment. Doesn't quite cover the full down payment, but it's pretty close. CHFA also allows you to increase your interest rate a little bit to either get 1% of the loan amount back to help cover closing costs, or 2% if you go a little higher on the interest rate to help cover the closing costs as well. Some of the other nice things about CHFA, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer, which is a great program. They're the only one that allows you to increase the interest rate to help cover the closing costs. The other programs don't allow that. CHFA, however, does not allow for co-signers. So it has to be, you have to be able to qualify. You and whoever else is going to live in the house has to be qualified. They do require you to use $1,000 of your own money within the purchase. So that would include even your inspection, which is maybe $200. That could count towards the $1,000. And then the little bit of remainder after their down payment assistance, that little bit that's left over that you have to pay could easily cover the rest of the $1,000.
Sure. And now you touched upon something that was really interesting there, and maybe people don't understand that. You said you could increase your interest rate a little bit to cover closing costs. Break that down for us.
Sure. Today, I happen to look at the rates, and let's say the rate today was at 4% for CHFA's first-time homebuyer program. It's called the Smart Step Plus program. That's with the down payment assistance. On the 4% rate today, they will give you 3% of the loan amount to use for down payment. At 4.25% today, they will still give you that same amount for down payment, but then they're going to give you an additional 1% of the loan amount to be paid towards closing costs. At 4.5%, they'll give you 2% of the loan amount to be paid towards closing costs. The other programs don't offer that.
Well, that can be rather big, right? Because when you're qualifying for a program, you can have you have to fund your mortgage insurance up front. Possibly, if you're doing an FHA loan, you have to fund your taxes up front. You have to fund your insurance up front. And so all of a sudden, this 3.5% down can be a lot of money. So if you can get a little help with that with a higher interest rate, even at historic lows, that could be huge for somebody, right?
It can. The closing costs on a typical loan, let's say a $100,000 loan, will be about $3,200. With CHAFA's 1% on a $100,000 loan, the 1% back for closing costs, they can give you $1,000 of that to cover it. With the 2% back, they'll give you $2,000. It makes a big difference. The higher loan amount you have, the more they're going to give back to you. So if you have a $200,000 loan, they can give you $2,000 back when you do that 1% back for closing costs. Or if you do the 2% back, that'd be $4,000. You can cover all or most of your closing costs, and also what are called your prepaid items. Your prepaid items would be like your first year of homeowners insurance that has to be paid at closing, and then also what's needed to set up your escrow account. And your escrow account is what's you put some money from your mortgage payment every month into your escrow to cover your property taxes and to cover your homeowners insurance. So when they come due the following year, the lender has the money in that escrow account to make those payments for you. You may also hear escrow accounts being called an impound account. They're the same thing.
That's one of the reasons I love working with Evan. I mean, this is some complex stuff being broken down in just such simple terms. And whether you're a first-time home buyer or a seasoned investor, having someone like Evan on your side, they can just lay this out for you in 5-10 minutes, make it all make sense. I mean, this is some complicated stuff, and he's just going at it. Program. What's that?
I'm sorry, was that the NHF program?
Yeah, your number 2 go-to program.
The NHF program is very similar to the CHAFA program, except you do not have to be a first-time home buyer, which is one of the nice things about it. They do not offer an increase in the interest rate to help cover closing costs. But instead of giving you 3% of the loan amount towards down payment, they'll give you up to 5%, which is a big difference. So that way you have your 3.5% down payment required for the FHA loan. The NHF program will give you 5% of the loan amount, so it will cover your full down payment, and it gives you, once the numbers are worked out, about 0.5% left over to be used towards your closing costs and your prepaid items. What that means, though, with the NHF program is that you are going to have to somehow come up with the rest of the money for the closing costs and the prepaid items. 2 ways to do that is, one is through your own funds or through a gift from a family member. The second way is you can also have your real estate agent ask the seller to cover your closing costs and your prepaid items for you when you make the offer on the house.
Yeah, we do that. We do that once in a while. It's a little harder to do in a seller's market, but what I like to do, and this is my little secret over at Denver Lifestyle Real Estate, is we'll negotiate a price for the house, and we won't include any seller concessions whatsoever, so that we're competing apples to apples. Let's say it's a $150,000 house versus a $150,000 offer. Boom, boom. Once we're accepted because we're a nice, strong offer, then we go back to the seller and we say, hey, you know what? We're looking at our finances. We're talking to our lender who's super creative. And what we'd like to do is go up to 155 with 5 back. It's the net same to the seller. They really don't care, but it's less confusing because when you're trying to negotiate that offer up front, you want to keep it nice and clean, easy for that seller to understand. You want them to accept your offer, basically, and you want to look like a nice, strong buyer.
Correct. That's a great point. It's a smart way to do it as well, to show the sellers, look, we have a good, strong offer here, and we're coming in with the financing pretty much already in place, and then after they accept the offer to come back if you need to change things a little bit. And usually I haven't seen that to be a problem whatsoever.
Now, you mentioned financing in place, and this could be a whole different webinar, but one of the things I like to tell my buyers to do, and I know that you've worked with some on this, is there's a difference between being pre-qualified and having a qualification letter when you go in to make an offer and being pre-approved. Walk us through the difference there.
All right, there's probably 4 different levels of this, and I'll start with the most basic, and that would be a pre-qualification. Getting a pre-qualification really is when a lender is getting basic information from you, probably pulling your credit, you're telling them what your income is, and they're looking at it and say, yeah, you should be able to get a house. They're really not looking in depth into your financial situation and not truly giving you a good answer as to whether or not you're going to be able to get the home. I don't do pre-qualifications. I really don't think they're worth the money, the paper that they're written on, and they really don't help you as a buyer, because if you go find a house, you fall in love, you go under contract, then the lender comes back once they start going through your finance and say, you don't qualify for that $200,000 home. It's closer to $120,000. You're crushed. You find a house you loved and now you can't buy it. That's why I don't like pre-qualifications. Pre-approvals carry a lot more weight and they're a lot more accurate. And there's 3 levels of a pre-approval that I would do. The first, I would get all of your financial information. I would pull your credit, get your pay stubs, get your tax returns. I would put it all on the computer, and from 13 years of experience, I would look at it all and say, looking at this, you shouldn't have any problem getting a loan. Everything looks great. Your debt to income ratio is good. Your credit scores are good. You have good assets. You have good money for down payment. You should be fine. That can be pretty strong based on my experience and what I've done in the past. The second level is doing all of that, and I look at the file and I'm like, it looks pretty good, but there might be something in here that could cause us an issue. I'd like to run it through an online system called Desktop Underwriter. Desktop Underwriter, also known as DU, is a Fannie Mae online system where we put all of that information into the computer. So it's going to look at your credit score, it'll look at your credit history, it'll look at your income, it'll look at your mortgage or rental history. It looks at everything about you, crunches all the numbers together, and based on historical results from millions of other people buying homes throughout the country over the last several decades, it'll come back and say, based on all of this, your loan will be approved if you can provide this information. Now, that's not 100% accurate. They're usually about 99% accurate because there's still a human element involved. And that's when an underwriter reviews the file, and there may be something that the underwriter sees in the paperwork that the computer system would never pick up just by entering in data. And that brings us to the third level of a pre-approval, and that's actually getting all the hard copied paperwork from you as the buyer, putting it all into a file and sending it into an underwriter. They will also run it through Desktop Underwriter, but then they will go through every piece of paper that you gave us and make sure that there's nothing in there, no red flags, nothing that would keep the file from being approved and helping you get a home. And they'll go through and they'll say, you know what, we can approve this loan if you provide these things. And that's the same thing that happens even if you're under contract. We do the same. We put together that file, we send it into an underwriter, they review everything, and they come back and say your loan is conditionally approved based on you providing these conditions. And that could be just an explanation letter for large deposits into your bank account. They may want to see a verification of employment from your employer, a verification of rent from the landlord you're renting from. It could be anything. That happens when you're under contract to buy a home, but it also happens in what I call my third level of pre-approval. We do all that before you go under contract to make sure there's nothing in there that's going to trip you up from purchasing that home. Once we get that conditional approval back from the underwriter and we provide those conditions to the underwriter, then you're pretty much ready to go. You go find a house. The only conditions left to purchase the home is find a house, get under contract, get good title work, the appraisal, homeowner's insurance, and then depending on how long it takes you, we may require updated pay stubs or updated bank statements. But that third level of pre-approval is extremely strong. And I can't remember a single instance that we've had a pre-approval based on that third level that has not ended up in having a loan and somebody purchasing a home.
Way off topic. Man, that could have been a webinar in and of itself. Probably could charge people for that information. That was fantastic. Now, I think a little while ago you mentioned you had a top 3. Is that correct as far as down payment assistance programs?
Correct. There is a third one that we use quite often here in the Denver area. It's the Denver MMA Plus program. The city and county of Denver put it together, and they offered it to other cities and municipalities throughout the metro area to join. And there's a list of about 14 or 15 cities, also including, I think, unincorporated Jefferson County and unincorporated Arapahoe County, I believe, as well. So if the properties are in these cities or within these communities that are participating with the Denver MMA Plus program, then those homes can use this down payment assistance. It is very similar into the NHF program, except for a few key things. Instead of a 5% grant, and all the money, by the way, from these 3 programs are grants. This is not money you ever have to pay back, and that's very important to keep in mind.
That's incredible.
It's a wonderful thing. Instead of the 5% grant, the MMA program gives you a 4% grant. So it doesn't give you quite as much, but it's still enough to cover the 3.5% FHA minimum down payment. You are going to have to find a way to come up with your closing costs and your prepaids. But the nice thing about the MMA program that the others don't offer is you can have a co-signer on your loan. So if you don't quite qualify on your own, you can have a parent, your aunt, your uncle, your grandmother, your sister, significant other, any family member co-sign the loan for you. They'll be on the loan, on the mortgage, so they'll be responsible for making sure the payments get made, but they're not on the deed to the property. That is a huge difference with the MMA program that both CHAFA and the NHF program do not offer.
Evan, because I haven't prepped him on any of these questions. I'm tossing in some real hard balls, curve balls, stuff out of nowhere, and he just flawlessly answers because he owns this information. He just he does this all the time, and that's why he's my go-to guy on this stuff. Evan, is there anything else? I mean, talking to you, it seems like just about anybody, well, not just anybody, but it seems really hard not to be able to buy a house if they come to you. I mean, these were 3 of the 2,300 programs you have access to. Um, tell me, I mean, it's a loaded question, I guess, but it seems like someone should be able to come to you and be able to structure a loan, get some down payment money as a grant they never have to pay back, bump up their interest rate a little bit, cover their closing costs. And I hate to go back to like the go-go 90s or whatever, but almost a zero money down situation. Is that close to accurate?
It is, and the no money down situation is something that I didn't mention before. I did say that CHAFA has a $1,000 minimum down payment. Neither the MMA program or the NHF program have a minimum. So you can actually, depending on how we structure the loan, get into a home using either one of those programs with no money out of your pocket. A couple things as well that each of these programs require is not only that you qualify for the loan based on the FHA underwriting guidelines, but that you qualify based on income guidelines for the household. So you can't have over a certain amount of income for every member of the household, depending on the number of people in the household. Each one of the programs has a slightly different dollar amount. And CHAFA also has what's called targeted and non-targeted areas. So if you buy in a targeted area, the amount of income, household income, can be higher. That's all things that I would look at for you. And there's also credit score requirements. You have to have for CHAFA a 620 middle credit score. And for the NHF and Denver MMA Plus program, you have to have a 640 minimum credit score. And for what's called your debt to income ratio, which I'm probably throwing out a lot of different terminology here that many of you aren't familiar with, but that's something that I can help you understand. And I try to speak it in words that you would understand, because I use this every day. So it's easy for me to know what I'm talking about. But the debt to income ratio, otherwise called your DTI, compares your income, your monthly gross income, compared to everything that shows up on your credit report, plus the housing payment. So that would include the principal, the interest, property taxes, homeowners insurance, mortgage insurance, and HOA dues if you have HOA dues. CHAFA, NHF, and Denver MMA all have DTI restrictions. So that takes something into to play as well. So if we were looking at the NHF program for you, NHF has a maximum debt to income ratio of 45%. If I was looking at everything on a particular house, your debt to income ratio came in at 48%, I couldn't do the NHF or even the MMA program. It also has a 45% maximum debt to income ratio. So that means we'd have to go look at the CHAFA program for you instead. That's one of the things that I would do when doing a pre-approval, is if we want to use the NHF program or the MMA program, I wouldn't go above a 45% debt to income ratio when I'm telling you how much you can afford. If you end up finding a house that's a little more expensive that you fall in love with, then we would have to switch it over to the CHAFA program and see how that would work for you as well.
I tell you what, my head is already spinning. So many acronyms, so many programs, so many things to qualify for. I tell you what, but I know you know your stuff, and I know that anybody I send to you, anybody that comes to you off the Rocky Mountain Down Payment Assistance, anybody off of DenverLifestyle.com or DenverRealEstateOffice.com, any one of our websites, your website, anybody we meet personally, I know my personal friends, I always send them to you because I want them taken care of, and I want something, I want them to have a good mortgage experience too. There's no bait and switch. There's no like, hey, I'm going to hide some money. Everything that Evan promises up front, he does in a timely fashion, especially if you need a fast close to compete with a cash offer. Now, Evan, last question for you, because I know you've got other stuff and you've got a ton of clients to serve today, which is awesome. Business is good. But what I want to know is, let's say I have, really bad credit. Can I do this? And second question, what if, I'm just kind of kicking along. I don't want to buy in a ghetto. I don't want to buy a poor house. I don't want to, I'm just kind of an average middle-class Joe wanting to buy a house, maybe about $300,000. Can I get down payment assistance on something like that?
Absolutely, you can. The biggest thing that's going to come back to, again, 3 things. One is going to be your household income. And I've helped people buy $400,000 homes with down payment assistance. So don't think you can't get a really nice home. Yeah, don't think you can't get a really nice home because of the price, because there are also income limitations based on these programs. It all depends on everybody's unique scenario and situation. And I definitely, if you want to find a nicer house, still, you need to talk to me and let me look through things. And I can tell you, you might not fit into the CHAFA program because your income's too high, but you would fit into the NHF program, or you would fit into the Denver MMA program. That's something that I have to do. And I can't stress this enough. We mentioned this in the beginning of the webinar. is don't just take the information that you find on the internet and think, okay, then I can use this program, or this program. You need to call and talk to us. We have to be able to go through and discuss what your hopes and dreams are for that home is, what your financial situation is, what your plans are, and we have to figure out the best program to use and make sure it makes sense for you. Or even, to be honest, if you can get a down payment assistance program based on your financial situation. And if you don't have the credit currently, if your credit score is not quite there, we can certainly go through your credit report with you, explain to you what's going on in your credit report, and try to put some things into place to help you raise your credit score. And there's also different things we can do for your finances as well. Some ideas and strategies to maybe help you get in a better position in that respect to purchase a home too. But I can't, again, stress it enough. Make the phone call, get me on the phone, talk to me, and then I can go through things with you and see if any of this is even going to make sense for you and if it's going to work.
Well, that is incredible. I mean, I always think, or I always used to think before learning from you and talking to you, that a down payment assistance program was for a $100,000 house. I make maybe $25,000 a year. And that's how I started off out of college. I was working for a company that I worked, 70, 80 hours a week for 25 grand. And I thought maybe that's who down payment assistance was targeted for, but it's really mind blowing to think that you can also buy a $400,000 house with down payment assistance. And, you're right. You can't figure this all out from the internet, no matter how robust a site is, no matter how much information it has, until you get on the phone with Evan and call Summit Mortgage Corporation. You're really doing yourself a disservice. You're either going to be paying too much, leaving money on the table, paying too high an interest rate, or, I've had clients that have gone to Evan, they're ready to buy a house right now, and Evan said, no, pump the brakes a little bit, wait 6 months so we can get you in a much better situation. And they are so happy they waited. And, quite frankly, I am too. I work with buyers, and I want to work with buyers who are qualified, but I also want to work with buyers who are going to be happy and become raving fans of our firm and refer us out to all their friends for years to come, because they said, hey, you know what? Not only did they help us find the perfect house, but they hooked us up with a great lender, a great contractor, great carpet cleaner, great installer, whatever that might be. So any closing thoughts, Evan, before we wrap up here?
Going back to a little bit of what you said, do call, do talk to us. We are professionals at what we do. We both loved our jobs. I love helping people get into a house and trying to figure out the best financial situation. If I do tell you that right now is not the best time for you to buy, doesn't mean you can't buy, but it just means if you give us a little time, maybe instead of a $200,000 home, in 6 months, you can afford a $250,000 home, but in 6 months, you can actually get into the loan and get into the home for the $250,000 home just by doing a few tweaks and something that we work on beforehand. Of course, the decision in the end is yours, but that's one of the things that we are proud of, is that we can sit here and help you look at all your different options and figure out what the best thing is for you. So please do give us a call, give me a call, let me know what I can do to help you, what down payment assistance programs are out there that might fit best for you. Give Rick a call to see what homes are out there, and let us help you get into the home of your dreams. And just what is your phone number, by the way? That would help. My office number is 720-200-9480, and my cell phone number is 303-885-9662. Feel free to call my cell phone in the evenings and on the weekends. If I at all have the possibility of answering, I will. The only time I don't is if my wife tells me I can't. So that's it. That's incredible. I mean, a mortgage lender you can access nights and weekends. I tell you what, sometimes when I'm touring clients and it's 6 o'clock on a Friday night and we need to put an offer in at 8 o'clock, Evan's there for us. I mean, I'm not going to vouch for him and say that he's always there, but he is there more than any other lender I know. And if you want to contact me to, for some buyer assistance, we have 7, 8 agents right now working the Denver area, all the way up to Boulder, down to Colorado Springs, Summit County, Grand County, Eagle County, experienced agents ready to help you out. Call me at 720-432-5595. That's 720-432-5595, or use the contact form at denverlifestyle.com. Again, that's denverlifestyle.com. Hey, we really appreciate your time, Evan. I know you've got just a lot to do right now, but I could not imagine getting more information in such a compact time period. And I really appreciate it, and I think all of our viewers do too. Thanks. You're welcome, Rick. It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me here today.